Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into something, wow, fascinating, a real paradox, actually. One that might just make you scratch your head a bit. Imagine a country, right?
Yeah.
Consistently ranked as the happiest in the world. You'd think its citizens would be absolutely thriving, wouldn't you?
You would assume so, yes.
Well, take Finland. Year after year, they get that top spot. But here's the surprising twist. They also report some of the highest rates of mental illness in the entire European Union.
It's a profound disconnect, isn't it? And, it's not just Finland. Mental health disorders affect, over 1 in 10 people globally? Depression alone impacts like 4.4% of the world's population.
Right.
So it raises this huge question. How can material well-being, all the comforts, the benefits, coexist with such widespread mental distress?
Okay, right. Let's try and unpack this then. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore how maybe our understanding of economics, the explosion of technology, and even, get this, the very physics of thought might hold the key to this baffling paradox.
That's quite a scope.
It is. We're going to examine a really interesting shift to what some sources are calling a 3D economy, then look at the surprising hazards of our rapid digital advancement. And then we'll take a truly deep dive into the physics of human cognition and the idea of spiritual well-being, exploring how maybe ancient wisdom could offer a kind of modern operating system for the human psyche.
So we're pulling together ideas from labor economics, AI research, even physics and spirituality.
Exactly. It's going to be quite a journey, I think.
Indeed. So let's start with how the economy itself is evolving. Our sources really emphasize the limitations of what they term the 2D economy.
The 2D economy.
Yeah, the one constrained by physical time and place. Think about it. A job where you have to be physically present, working set hours in a specific location. That model is just, it's increasingly inadequate for our digital age.
Okay, so that's the old way, and this is where the 3D economy comes in. How does that fundamentally shift things beyond just, being virtual?
Well, it's framed as a truly transformative model, described by something called the Digital Sustainable Growth Model, or DSGM. The core idea is that virtual space, not physical presence, enables dynamic value creation. It kind of liberates us from those traditional physical constraints, allowing for totally new ways to generate worth.
Right, right. So if the whole economic landscape is shifting like that, how does it change how we view the people in it? You mentioned in the old 2D economy, people were often just seen as labor-like static cogs in a machine.
Precisely, static contributors. But in this evolving 3D economy, individuals get redefined as talent.
Talent, okay.
Yeah, they're seen as dynamic, multidimensional agents capable of continuous growth and contribution, almost like sophisticated AI agents themselves in a way.
Huh. That's a different way to think about it.
And this redefinition fosters what our sources call a talent stock market. It's driven by the flow of data, ideas, interactions, not just physical output or hours clocked.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. And Denmark, they often come up as pioneers in social welfare and that idea of flexicurity.
Right, that mix of flexible labor markets and strong social security.
Yeah. So they're presented as this interesting case study in digitalization. But even they're facing challenges with this, right?
They are, yes. Despite their advanced policies, Denmark's current platforms for the unemployed, things like Uddannelsesguiden, Jobnet, Uddannelseszoom, Mit Jobkompass, they suffer from fragmented user experiences, limited personalization.
So not joined up.
Not really. The job matching can be pretty inefficient. For instance, one platform, Mit Jobkompass, apparently shows a significantly better effect size in matching people compared to, say, Uddannelsesguiden. But the overall system is still fragmented. It lacks that seamless integration.
So even with good intentions and strong safety nets, the system's limitations show through. The sources seem to really emphasize a need for an AI transformation to bridge those gaps. Maybe create one unified platform for everything: career development, recruitment, training.
Exactly. Using advanced machine learning for adaptive, real-time advice. Which, interestingly, brings us to insights from the Human Information Technology Lab, or HITL, based in Finland.
HITL, okay.
They've apparently been on this 15-year journey in socioeconomic innovation, operating privately, no public funding. They developed projects like big data social matching, the Navigator, Maestro, all aimed at digitizing and innovating labor markets, fitting in with growth theories.
What is unique about their approach, though? They call it surgical. What does that mean?
Well, they don't just treat the symptoms, They focus on precision, getting right to the root cause of these complex socioeconomic problems rather than just patching up surface issues.
Oh, okay. Deeper diagnosis.
Right. It's about identifying and precisely fixing the core underlying dysfunction.
And through this approach, they made some kind of pivotal discovery, the citizen transaction. Can you elaborate on what that actually means for, an individual person?
It's quite a powerful concept. Essentially, it means empowering citizens to harness the value of their own data throughout their entire life cycle from birth to death.
Wow.
The goal is to balance business demand and talent supply by letting individuals continuously contribute their unique talents to innovation. It really reimagines the individual as this dynamic, data-rich contributor across their whole lifespan.
So this sounds like a complete overhaul of how we think about work and our contribution. How does this vision impact your future in the workforce as a listener? Now, while technology clearly offers immense potential for this kind of economic shift, it also carries some pretty surprising downsides, which I guess leads us into our next section. Our source material points to a potential erosion of human potential caused by the very tech we celebrate.
It's a genuine technological paradox. If we rely too heavily on AI for decision-making, for example, it can lead to complacency, maybe a decline in our own judgment skills.
Right.
And we already know AI algorithms can perpetuate bias, which is a massive concern. The key distinction here, I think, is that machines are great at repetitive tasks, sure, but they fundamentally lack that nuanced understanding, the creativity that's inherent in human cognition. They don't think like we do.
So, if we lean on them too much, we risk losing our own unique human skills. One of our sources introduces a novel framework for sorting these digital hazards called Shalaby's classification. What are the main categories there?
That's right. Okay, so first, there are pathophysiological impacts, things like deteriorating physical health, sedentary behavior, disrupted sleep patterns.
Makes sense.
Then, content-related risks. Misinformation, fake news, hyperinformation overload, those filter bubbles that can trap us in echo chambers.
Yeah, we hear a lot about those.
Next, cognitive AI hazards. This is about impairments in our attention, our memory, our decision-making processes because of the constant digital stimuli and maybe how AI algorithms shape what we see. It leads to what the source calls cognitive disruption.
Cognitive disruption.
And the last category.
Modification factors. This just covers how these hazards are influenced by things like age. They affect kids, teens, the elderly differently, and also culture, gender, social status, even just how long you're exposed to digital stuff.
Right. And we see tangible examples all around us, things like digital addiction, gaming, social media, or that almost unbelievable statistic. 89% of undergraduates reporting phantom vibrations.
Feeling their phone vibrate when it isn't. 89%.
89%, yeah. And our sources also mention technostress, obviously, but also this concept of young aging.
Young aging, what's that?
It's where young individuals start showing biological, social, psychological signs of aging, really, because of excessive digital exposure. They might struggle with integrating into the labor market, lack motivation. It's a real concern for their readiness, for work and life.
Wow. So the challenge then is mitigation. How do we deal with this? Technology is evolving so incredibly fast, but scientific discovery, implementing measures to counter these effects, that moves much more slowly.
Way slower. And policy frameworks, things designed to protect our data, ensure ethical AI. They face these uphill battles, slow bureaucratic processes on one hand, and the sheer speed of tech advancement on the other.
It raises a really important question, doesn't it? How can we possibly keep up with these rapidly accelerating risks to our own well-being?
That is the million-dollar question, absolutely.
And maybe trying to answer that leads us into this truly profound, maybe quite abstract idea in our final section. The physics of thought and this quest for harmony. Our source material takes a pretty radical perspective here, asking, what if consciousness isn't just a biological thing, but actually a physical field?
Wow.
Yeah, the source suggests thinking of the mind not as some byproduct, but as geometry.
Geometry, okay, that's different. The source introduces these core ideas from symbolic physics, collapse and return. What are those about?
Right, so collapse is apparently when symbolic parts of our thoughts align coherently. It reduces mental clutter, that feeling of noise, and increases clarity or information density. Think of it like a jumbled set of ideas suddenly just snapping into focus.
Wow, okay. Like an aha moment, maybe.
Kind of, yeah. And return is described as the topological closure of meaning, a recursive reintegration. Imagine understanding an idea so completely that it cycles back and integrates perfectly into everything else, forming this complete coherent whole.
A deep level of understanding.
Exactly. And then there's the tensor of thought. This is described as the symbolic mechanics of consciousness. The source even redefines a bit, from computing, not just as digital info, but as a unit of symbolic action density.
Symbolic action density, joules per cubic meter per second, the source says. That's a specific.
It is. It anchors symbolic thinking as a measurable physical field process governed by recursive logic. And here's what's really striking. The implication is that abstract concepts like love, obligation, law, memory, even healing, they aren't just feelings or ideas. They're described as measurable phase structures.
Measurable phase structures. So even our deepest human experiences might have a physical, measurable reality. That changes how you think about their impact.
Completely. There's also the spiral tensor governing the geometry of learning and collapse, kind of generalizing understanding into a measurable symbolic deformation field. And the source even extends this to ethical collapse, like a systemic breakdown when our intentions, our internal vectors, fundamentally misalign.
A misalignment of intention.
Yeah. And return, that reintegration, is presented not just as a choice, but as a kind of universal moral principle for symbolic recursion, suggesting there's this natural tendency towards coherence and integration within consciousness itself.
It's definitely a radical way to look at something so intangible. So how does this incredibly abstract physics idea connect back to where we started, that Finland paradox, high happiness, high mental illness?
Well, the same source points out that despite all the material well-being, many in Finland experience mental illness. And the core idea presented is that psychological well-being and through happiness don't just come from material stuff. They come from the ability to connect all aspects of life in harmony.
So it's about internal connection and harmony, not just external conditions. That makes sense.
Yeah. The psyche itself is described as this dynamic, viable buildup, a kind of semantic network connecting our past and future events. And what truly harms the psyche, the detriment factor as they call it, is the inability to answer why when life throws challenges at you.
So the more answers you have for those fundamental why questions,
The more resilient your psyche becomes. And what's fascinating here is the claim that our brain is actually anatomically and functionally determined to create harmony between our internal virtual world and external physical reality. The corpus callosum, for instance, coordinating between the holistic right side and the tangible left side, constantly working for this balance.
Okay. And then the sources take this. Well, an intriguing leap, maybe unexpected for some, suggesting that perhaps an ancient spiritual framework could provide the operating system for this complex human psyche in its search for harmony.
Right. It introduces this deep concept that humanity accepted a trust known as amana in the source, that even the heavens, earth, and mountains refuse to carry.
Oh, trust. What kind of trust?
It's described as the power to acknowledge God's supremacy and obey commands out of free will, but also having the power to deny or rebel. So this implies this profound responsibility, which according to the source drives life's struggles and maybe even psychological distress.
Okay, that's a deep idea. And this leads directly to that analogy you mentioned earlier, an operating system for the human psyche.
Exactly. The source presents Islam not solely as a religion in the conventional sense, but as a knowledge system, an authorized program for man and life from the Creator. Its purpose, it says, is to reconnect your offline psychic to the universal Wi-Fi.
That's quite the metaphor, universal Wi-Fi.
It is. And just like computer OSs get updates with Judaism and Christianity presented as earlier versions in this analogy, Islam is described as the latest and last human OS update.
And the Qur'an, within this framework,
It's presented as having this complex linguistic structure, mathematical and geometric encryption even, to prevent manipulation, making it an integral miracle, the source claims, that develops the brain regardless of your mother tongue.
Interesting. And at the heart of this OS, you mentioned something called an X-harmony factor, which is defined as love.
Yes, love, presented as a genius concept, a heavenly quality. Permanent peace, pure sweetness, without impurities, fear of loss, sadness, or anxiety. But it requires light, the source says, and it's crucial for creating mutual understanding, cooperation, balance, harmony within human relationships. And interestingly, it insists you cannot find true love alone.
The source also details practical applications, right? The pillars of this OS as ways to maintain this harmony.
It does. For example, prayer, salah, is described as the regular purification of the soul, a daily encounter to stop worrying about yourself and submit, like a newborn child, and admire the Creator, a lifelong discipline.
Okay.
Then there are other pillars, like zakat, described as an obligatory movement of wealth, a pure investment to God only, with divine returns promised, not commercial ones. and fasting during Ramadan, characterized as an act of gratefulness to God for the guidance of the Qur'an, a way to prepare oneself for its purpose.
And Hajj, the pilgrimage.
Yes, harsh too. A series of rituals, including Iram, which involves eliminating wealth and class status to stand equal before God, and stoning the devil, symbolically confronting one's ego and evil inclinations.
The framework also mentions Satan's role.
It does. Describing his mission as creating chaos by introducing small, often unnoticed changes to norms over time, promoting the overriding of natural harmony and coupling, competing essentially for the caliph or steward position that was appointed to humanity.
And the Prophet Muhammad is described as embodying this OS.
Yes, demonstrating a 360-degree panorama of human relationship and activities, leading transparently by example, according to the source.
And there's a critical insight about welfare systems, too.
Ah, yes, the welfare line, they call it. Sincere people can for sure build a sustainable welfare system, but it is not sure that welfare on its own can build sincere people, implying that true welfare needs more than just material support. It requires, the source suggests, the right psychological education and the right contract with the right God.
So a profound link between interstate and outer systems.
So let's try and wrap this up. We've journeyed from the transformative potential of this 3D economy through the hidden pitfalls of digital advancement, all the way to a really surprising physics of thought and a spiritual framework proposed for human well-being. What stands out most to you from all these interconnected ideas?
Oh, it's quite a path, isn't it? From the very tangible aspects of our work lives, our economy, to the deeply abstract nature of consciousness itself, all somehow converging on this fundamental quest for human flourishing and harmony. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. If concepts like love, obligation, healing are indeed measurable phase structures in the geometry of our minds, and if the very stability of our inner world depends on that recursive closure, that bringing together of understanding, what personal collapse, that snapping into focus or return, that deep integration might you be experiencing in your own life right now? And what intention, what driving force might be shaping your unique symbolic field, your consciousness at this moment? How might understanding these dynamics, even just thinking about them, change how you experience your daily life?